Oh, it is the National Briefing with me, Kelly Nash, and I am so excited for the weekend. First off, I love college football. So if you love college football, some big games this weekend. Maybe you love the NFL. That got started last night with the Eagles and some ugliness and spitting. We had a spit fest at the NFL last night. But anyway, whether you love the NFL, college football, or whatever it is that you love to watch on television, there's probably not going to be anything more entertaining than what's going to happen this weekend in Chicago. J.B. Pritzker, who I call F.A. Pritzker, had a press conference yesterday to break the news that the National Guard is about to begin the siege of Chicago. And they were asking the governor, what does the timeline look like for this?
Again, they have not communicated that full schedule to us, although there apparently were some conversations with the local North Chicago officials. Nothing official communication with the state. But yes, we believe that they are going to be fully assembled by tomorrow and then can begin operations after that. And again, we heard that that would begin early on Saturday morning.
Interesting that a siege, before you launch it, you would actually call the people in authority, which is the Chicago locals, not the governor. You call them and you say, hey, listen, this is where we're coming in. This is where we're going to be located, which is, I think, at a Navy shipyard that they have there in Chicago. This is where we're going to be setting up base. And usually you don't give what you would call, J.B. Pritzker calls them the enemy. You don't normally give the enemy your plans unless you're actually trying to help the enemy, which is what they're trying to do. Help you, F.A. Pritzker. But Saturday morning is when it launches, apparently. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, you're going to be scrolling social media. You're going to be listening to your conservative news talk radio. You're going to be watching your conservative television outlets. I mean, this could be amazing. It really could. Now, Brandon Johnson has not really commented on this too much. I haven't seen any audio of him speaking about it, but I do go to his X account and I see he's got a headline here from some left-wing outlet called The Intercept. Trump's Chicago occupation could cost 4 times more than housing the city's homeless. And yet Donald Trump's already offered to help with the city's homeless, and you rejected that too, dum-dum. Okay, we've got a headline from the Chicago Sun-Times. Residents of Chicago's most violent block don't want Trump sending the National Guard. Did you find like 2 gangbangers to come and give a quote? Who doesn't want the help? Chicago Sun-Times. And finally, Brandon wants to address not this, but he actually wants to address climate change, which again is the existential threat. Donald Trump, I guess, is sort of an existential threat, but not as much as the global warming. Well, it's not global warming. I'm sorry, climate change. And he wants to point out, ironically, the worst heat wave in Chicago's history, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of it. So in 30 years, it hasn't gotten better, or worse, it got better. And he wants to celebrate the fact that we survived the worst heat wave in Chicago history 30 years ago today. So there's his comments on the situation. Now, I'll be interested to see what his comments are tomorrow, because people are starting to notice that, and you might not have heard this yet, Brandon loves security for himself, not for the other people in the city of Chicago, but for himself. He has the largest security detail by far of any mayor in the United States. And when we say by far, I think it's at least triple the size of all other security details. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, Brandon Johnson, in 2024, the report estimated that he has about 150 Chicago police officers working for his security details. That includes over 100 officers who have to go, like the Secret Service, and stake out any potential place that, like if he's going to go to a restaurant, if he's going to, that's their job. They're the front team. But he travels with 20 personal bodyguards at all times. 20. I think that's more than Trump gets. 20 personal. Now, where do you get all the money for this? Well, ironically, Brandon encouraged the Chicago Board of Education to end its $10.3 million contract with the Chicago Police Department. So now all of the school resource officers have been pulled from the Chicago high schools. You would think that, I mean, I'm not an expert on crime, but it seems that that's where the gangs like to recruit, is in the schools, and that that's where the violence begins, is in the schools. And that if you could squash the violence and discourage the gang activities in the schools, that perhaps you're setting your city up for less violence. Brandon disagreed. He took the $10.3 million from the high school resource officers and then put it into a security detail. That's how he got it. He said, screw the kids, give it to me. That's your leader in Chicago. Now, I have to just point out that as all this is going on, you're seeing a little bit of the same type of situation with the great liberal leaders of Portland, Oregon. If you haven't read this story or seen any of it, they've now, this is amazing, they've got a 4-block radius around an ICE detention center where they have not stopped protesting for 80 days. And this week they've now rolled out a guillotine and they put some American flags around it and set them on fire. And that got the attention of Fox News, who gave us a report on that yesterday.
And what makes this even more frustrating for residents is that Portland police won't respond to noise complaints or even when assaults are witnessed.
They cornered 2 women out here. They need help. They cornered them. Please send the cops.
Portland police have not made a single arrest since June 18th, despite a number of assaults. A protester hit one resident with a megaphone, then a fist. Despite the injuries, no arrest.
They're sending people to the hospital who have the misfortune of wandering into the now 4-block occupied radius around an ICE detention center. And if you don't seem to align with Antifa, then you are assaulted. Or if you have, I mean, it's insane what's happening out there. So when they talk about the National Guard occupying a city, they're the ones occupying cities. And the fact that the police department will, and by the way, there's further reports inside of that report that shows the police department acknowledging to other officers, because apparently there were some officers going, hey, I'm hearing radio calls over here for help. And they're saying you can't go in. Don't go into that. Don't. They cut a deal with the protesters that you guys can just run amok and we won't do anything. So that's what liberal leadership looks like. Sheer insanity. So this weekend, as the quote unquote siege of Chicago begins, do you think that they're going to bring a guillotine? I wonder if they're going to and they'll light gay pride flags on fire or something like that. This could be a wild weekend in Chicago. And now look, I know New Orleans is scheduled to get some of this kind of love from the federal government. It seems to me that Portland ought to be skyrocketing to the top of that list.